you so much for having me. I see a lot of familiar faces and a lot of new faces, and I'm just really excited to be here with you. Can we start the PowerPoint? You want to try that? I brought a few pictures. I just want to share, who my family is, and then some pictures too of our home, and I'll be telling that story. So my family, as you heard, we're currently on quite an adventure. It started with a small tragedy that has really tested what I know and believe about God. So I'll keep going while he gets that set up. This past February 2nd, Groundhog Day, I remember it being especially cold, and there was a snowstorm coming, so they canceled school. The kids were home, and Tim, whose day off is Monday, he was home too. So we got to enjoy a really nice, quiet evening, quiet day together. Keston, our oldest, he's our intellectual. He's 11 and very spiritually sensitive for an 11-year-old. And Ella, our daughter, is 7 years old. She's very imaginative and artistic and affectionate. She's the first one to give hugs to strangers. We have to tell her, please stop hugging strangers. Because, we don't know them. And so now she looks for approval. Can I hug them? And then Owen, he's our 3-year-old. And he's very curious. He's comedic. We say he's got quick feet, which those of you that are moms know that's code for always runs away from his mom and dad and his siblings. But he's got these great dimples, and he's really a sweetheart. So around dinner time on February 2nd, the kids were on the couch, all reading, all 3 of them, and I have that picture. That's kind of the last picture I took on my phone, and I have it. I'll show it to you later when we get this set up. So my husband and I both love to cook, as you heard, and when it came time to make dinner, we thought we would make something we usually don't, fish and chips. And, he threw some onion rings on the menu, too. And although we own almost every kitchen appliance or gadget ever invented, we didn't have a deep fryer. So we filled a pot with corn oil that we had from the Super Bowl party the night before, turned up the heat, went down the... So anyway, we turned up the heat, we made the food, it looked delicious, we sent the kids downstairs to the basement and said, oh there we go, there's our house. But let me pause, I'll show you a couple of pictures. So there's our house, this was taken recently. The next one is my husband and I. He said, wow, we were both a lot thinner in that picture. This was last year. And then the next one down is our oldest with his grandparents. That was his 11th birthday he just had. Very happy kid. And then the next one is our daughter, Ella. We call her a little butterfly. And then the next one is our son, Owen. More down. It's suspense. Anyway, Owen's on there too. Oh, that's the end. Wait, don't show him the fire pictures yet. Don't look. There we go, there's Owen. I'm kissing his little face. Can't see the dimples, but they're there. There he is. And then the next picture was the one I just talked about, the 3 of them on the couch, quietly reading together. Those are Minecraft books, so it's not really reading. It's kind of getting ideas for their video game. Anyway, well, we can leave it on that picture, because that was our last picture there. So we made the food, and we sent the kids downstairs, and we said, why don't you go get a movie set up. We'll watch a family movie while we eat, and our family room is in the basement. So they went downstairs. Tim turns off the burner, moves the pot over next to it, puts the lid on it, and says, all right, I'm coming down. He came downstairs. We got settled. We watched some trailers, and then we started the movie, which was Mr. Peabody and Sherman. Very funny movie if you want to watch it. Smart, animated, it's hilarious. And then about 5 minutes into the movie, I start to hear this popping sound. It was loud, and it had a weird rhythm, kind of like when you put overalls in a dryer and they bang around in there, bang, 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 just no rhythm to it. And then it kind of sounded like big balloons at a party that were popping, or like logs on a campfire that are a little bit wet and they make that sound. So I turned to Tim, I said, pause the movie, do you hear something? And he paused and he turned his head, and sure enough, he heard it. Pop, 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 pop. And so in that second, I had this flashback to the corn oil container, and it had said on the side, warning, highly flammable, do not leave unattended at high temperatures. And I just thought, oh no, the stove. So I asked him, did you turn off the burner? And he said, yes, but we were both thinking, we gotta go check right now. Sure enough, I said to the kids, stay here, we'll be right back, don't move. And we ran upstairs, and there were huge flames on our stove. Not just the stove, but the cabinets beside the stove. It was about, I would say, 3 feet high, maybe 4 feet wide. They were just engulfing everything. Our kitchen was on fire. And we didn't even realize the electricity had gone out because the fire, it was so bright. We thought, oh my goodness. So Tim gave me his phone. He said, call 911. And he grabbed the fire extinguisher. It lasted about 30 seconds and didn't really make a dent. So I called 911. For the first time in my life, I was shaking, and I just explained what happened. So you've heard already that I've been a follower of Christ for about 30 years. And I don't really say that in a flippant, churchy kind of way. Oh, I've always gone to church. I really have decided to follow the plan that God has for my life and try and do it in the way that Jesus Christ would do it. When I was 5 years old, I first heard and understood what the Bible meant about me being separated from God because of my sin. My mom talked to me about trusting that only Jesus could forgive my sin and that he did it by dying on a cross for me. She also explained that when I believed this truth, that I would get to spend eternity with God in heaven. And I later learned that following Jesus meant listening to and obeying him for the rest of my life. Now that's a lot for a 5-year-old to grasp. But fortunately, I had the Bible, and I was able to read the very words of God. There's so many helpful and challenging truths in God's Word. I wanted to talk to you about just one little section in the book of Matthew. And it's in chapter 6, verses 19 to 21. And Matthew was quoting Jesus in this passage right here. So it says, do not lay up or store for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up or store for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So in other words, what we hold closest to our hearts, that's where we'll get our greatest satisfaction. And in these verses, Jesus is giving us a choice. He says, well, we can either treasure the things of this world, or we can treasure the things of God. We have a choice between the plans and activities and longings of the heart that lead to a greater earthly reward right now, or plans and activities and a surrendering of the heart that lead to a greater reward from God that will bring joy and will last for eternity. It sounds so black and white, doesn't it? So easy. But to be really transparent, it's taken me the greater part of 30 years to really fully grasp this idea and to own it for myself, to embrace it. When I was 7 years old, my favorite movie was Cinderella, Disney's Cinderella, the old one. I would pop a VHS tape in, and for some of you, a VHS tape is a rectangle. It's plastic. You put it in a sideways toaster and it plays movies. So I would watch Cinderella over and over again, singing along with all the songs. A dream is a wish your heart makes. Right, we all know this song. And then I would act out the scenes around the house. I would put on a skirt and an apron, sometimes the little bandana if I had one, and I would carry around big piles of laundry and pretend like I just had endless laundry to do. I'm sure my mom was just, really? Like, you got laundry to do? And then I would switch characters, and I would be the evil stepmother, which now I know why I love those evil characters and I'm acting now. And I would walk around and say, do the tapestries and the draperies. And then I would say, but I already did, do them again. And I would act out that part. And then, after my drama, I would run over to the mirror and I would practice, I kid you not, practice accepting my Oscar award. I would get the fake tears going. I just want to thank my mom and dad. And I worked out the whole thing. And I remember for several years thinking, maybe I will be a famous actress. And then when I was 12 years old, the Winter Olympics were happening. I think they were in France, and our family watched the games on TV. And I'm sure, like many of you, I was enraptured with the grace and beauty of the figure skaters. I was enraptured. Those triple Lutzes, I just watch. You know, they'd get ready, they'd get their leg out there, and then they'd go for the turn. Oh my goodness. And so after one night of watching these games, I remember going to my room, it was all quiet, and I prayed, Lord, whatever you have for me, if you want me to be a figure skater, or a teacher, or an actress, or a figure skater, I'm open to whatever you have for me. And I thought, well, maybe I'll be an Olympic athlete. Later, my mom was like, well, you know, we don't have any ice skating rinks near us, honey. I think that's not going to work. And then at age 18, I moved to Chicago to study music at a small Christian college. The program was rigorous and time-consuming, a lot of hours in these tiny little practice rooms. And getting a degree in voice meant I had to study opera. And I do not like singing opera. I'm not an opera singer. But I knew God had music in my future, so I obediently went to my classical voice lessons, and then rebelliously recorded my album of folk rock songs I'd written at night up until 2 a.m. And then my voice teacher would say, why is your voice so damaged? And I would, I was up till 2 a.m. recording an album. Anyway, but I did think, maybe I'll be a famous singer-songwriter. And I could give you a lot more examples of ways that, and they're kind of self-focused, as you can see the theme there, famous this, famous that. But the plans or treasures that were in my young heart, they crowded my heart. They were just a lot of self-focused ones. And then it didn't really get any better. Relationships with guys, affirmation from peers. I wanted to succeed in sports or be popular or landing a good role in the school musical. And thankfully, with age and maturity came a deepening of my knowledge of God. And, you know, he showed me proof after proof of his loving and good plan for my life. And I was just starting to realize that some of the earthly treasures I held on to weren't exactly what God had for me. I met my husband Tim while we were in college. We got married right after graduation, 2 weeks later. That was a stressful season. And you know, we started our life pursuing ministry together through the local church. We were blessed with 1, and then 2, and then 3 children. God showed himself worth trusting in my life. And yet I still struggle with some of those earthly longings. The rusty treasure that just lasts for a little while. The satisfaction found in the here and now. And over the years, I started to have a lot of questions for God. Why isn't marriage as easy and satisfying as the movies make it out to be? I certainly don't feel like my husband completes me. Why did you allow me to get pregnant at 24 so early in our marriage? I missed out on all the excitement and fun that most of my friends in their 20s got to enjoy. Why don't I have the successful music career I thought you had for me? Instead, I'm changing diapers and endlessly cleaning the house. Where is the adventure I thought my life would be? Does following your plan mean I will be bored and unimportant for the rest of my life? As a girl, my plans for my life were me-focused. Fame, accolades, and then after real life turned out to be much less glamorous than my dreams, I blamed God. I stored up treasures for the here and now, for earthly reward, and then wondered why I wasn't feeling fulfilled. My heart was not satisfied because I didn't treasure my relationship with Christ and following God's plan. And honestly, I didn't trust him. I didn't trust that his plan would bring me happiness. Well, I can tell you now that God is infinitely loving and patient. And looking back, I can see so clearly that God kept trying to teach me this one simple idea. Kelli, your heart will never be fully satisfied until you treasure me most. It took so many years of struggle for God to reach my heart. And let me tell you, surrendering your everything to God is not easy. But in surrendering, God has shown me what a fulfilling life actually looks like, what it means, what it feels like. And God has shown me that he had a heavenly purpose even for those earthly longings in my heart. He saw my childhood antics of acting out Cinderella and the evil stepmother, and And he was placing a dramatic flair in me because he was going to put me into music theater, where I didn't get to just act. I actually got to direct and write music for kids. And that love of drama and theater meant these kids that I was working with would be able to sing and act for God's glory, not for their own and not for mine. I didn't know that, but God knew that was in my future. God heard me praying to be made into a famous ice skater, and he knew I'm placing in Kelli's heart the gift of faith, so she will keep asking me, what's next, God? Just tell me where, and I'll do it. I'll go. She's going to marry a pastor, and she will need to be flexible and faithful. I didn't see that, but God knew I would need it. God saw the longing in my heart to be a musician, and he knew I'm going to give her a voice and musical ability and leadership qualities so she can use it to point people, not to herself, but to me. She's going to sing about me for people all over the world. She's going to teach music and write music and lead worship at churches and for women's retreats and for kids at Bible camps. And I could not have predicted that. But God knew what he was gifting me for. And God answered my questions about marriage. He knew Mary and Tim would never complete me because Jesus Christ is the only person that can complete you. Only Jesus could ever know me completely, as all women long to be known and still love me unconditionally. And finding my completeness in Christ has actually deepened my marriage. I actually like Tim better now than I ever did. And life with him has been an adventure. God answered my questions about having children. He knew that having my son Keston at 24 would bring the greatest joy and laughter I'd ever experienced. Women in their 20s have a lot of energy, and I got to spend my energy in my 20s and my early 30s having fun with some of the coolest people I know, my kids. God knew that teaching me to be faithful in the small things, like changing diapers, making meals every day, cleaning the toilets, which I don't like, that proving faithful in those small things, it meant he could trust me with greater things. He entrusted me with leading women's groups, having an impact on my church, and actually teaching his word. That's scary. And you know what? I have 45 people over at my house every month for dinner, and I don't panic. Like all at once, they all come over, and I can handle it. I think because God's been teaching me, well, you can make dinner every day. You can make dinner for 45 people. It's been a blessing. God knew it would take a while, but I would realize his plans for me. It would not be boring or unimportant. That life with God is better than anything else. And I mean that. I'm so grateful to be rid of my small ambitions and my plans, my rusty, my moth-riddled treasures, and to be filled instead with purpose and hope and fulfillment. So I have to ask you, what are the treasures of your heart? What are some of the dreams and ideas that are really deeply rooted and that might be treasures of earthly reward? Could some of the things in your heart be keeping you from a joyful relationship with God? Are you holding on to the safety and security of your family? I know with women there's a lot of fear that we have about our family, making sure they're okay, that they're safe. Are you putting your hope in the success or status of your job? Does your happiness rely on that man or guy giving you attention, or that group of friends finally inviting you to join them? Does the mundane of your routine make you doubt that you can trust God's plan? Is your relationship with God an afterthought at the bottom of your list of priorities? Maybe you're here this afternoon and this idea of trusting God is completely new to you. Maybe you've never heard that Jesus died on the cross for you, for your sin, because he loves you so much. You don't have to live your life by trying to find happiness and just getting by. I'm here to tell you, with so many years of testing and trial, that your heart will never be fully satisfied until you treasure Christ most. And now is the best time to make that decision. If he's speaking to you right now, don't shut him down. You can talk to me after our time together. You can talk to any of the women you saw standing in leadership, the lady with the heart at your table, or the person who brought you. Have that conversation. We'd be happy to talk to you. So the night of February 2nd changed a lot of things for our family. And going through a fire has tested what I know and believe about God. But it's not because the fire brought doubt. In the same way that a test at school is a confirmation, hopefully, of what you've already studied, this has been an opportunity to confirm what God has already been teaching me about himself. I can gratefully tell you that all 5 of us got out unharmed. We went out to the porch that night with no burns or injuries, and the Percy and Sellersville fire departments came quickly and did a great job of minimizing the damage. Our 3-year-old was so excited about the trucks, right? Just pointing. And this was maybe 8 or 9 o'clock at night. It was cold, but we were in a truck just kind of watching it all happen. We were in the fire chief's truck as they all pulled up in front. After the fire in the kitchen was out and all the volunteers had gone home, the chief walked Tim and I through the black and smoky kitchen, trying to piece together how it had started. He said the stovetop had definitely been turned off. It's great for insurance reasons. But the heat from the oil must have been too much for the pot. So it jumped out onto the burner that was still hot and started the fire while we were downstairs. Needless to say, I don't ever plan on using corn oil again. So what was the damage and where are we now? I can show the next couple of pictures. Well, our kitchen and everything in it is gone. This is us. Yeah, that was the before. This was just right after. That means all of our pots and pans, my KitchenAid mixer I got from my wedding bridal shower. Just the kids in the dining room, they're looking through. Oh, we skipped to the end. There we are. Okay. There's a few more in there. The mugs we collected from our travels and from my parents' travels overseas. The ice cream bowls our kids hand-painted. The cookbook my dad gave me for my 13th birthday. And although the fire was contained to the kitchen, some of the windows and light fixtures in the next door rooms popped and shattered. The popping, by the way, was all of our dishes just exploding. And I'm glad we had that warning, otherwise I might not have heard it. Yeah, so anyway, the windows, the doors, the windows and the picture frames, appliances, they all melted, even my cell phone and my husband's computer. It took a couple days to get another one, so I couldn't tell anyone, we're okay. The rest of our house is entirely covered in smoke and soot. And that means every single thing in the house had to come out. So the furniture, the books, the clothing, all the toys, all the craft supplies that I just organized in my upstairs closet. Every single Lego had to be out, has to be removed for either cleaning or the trash. And we don't really know yet what will come back to us. And we can't live in the house right now because there are so many walls and floors and ceilings that need to be reconstructed. So we've been relocated to an apartment, at least until July or August. That is a snapshot of our loss. But I cannot even begin to tell you the blessings that have been coming from this experience. Here's a few. Most importantly, God has used this fire to remind Tim and me and our kids that he is good. We were ready for this tragedy because God had already taught us that his ways are the best ways. And having our house and security, our earthly stuff, taken away from us doesn't change that God is good. I hope that my kids never forget that, what they've learned through this experience. God is using this fire to teach me what it means to be compassionate and generous. Our church family, our neighboring churches, even friends from college or friends of people we know from college, strangers really, they've been so generous and thoughtful. Gifts or gift cards or just even saying, we're praying for you. How can we pray for you? What can we do? It's been really humbling and hard to be in need and to accept help, but it's been a really powerful lesson that we will never forget. The night of the fire, I might cry right here, huddled on the porch together, I heard my 11-year-old son say to his sister, Ella, this is just like we were reading in the Bible, in the book of Job. Sometimes God gives, and sometimes God takes away. I know he'll take care of us. My 11-year-old. And And then he prayed with her. So knowing that my kids are already learning about the goodness of God and not questioning his ways, that gives me such hope for them. And they're already learning to trust him without question. I think this fire had to teach them that. So my prayer for you is that you would also be able to say with full confidence, no matter what your circumstances, no matter what fire might be ahead for you, that you could say, my heart is at peace. I am satisfied because the treasure of my heart is Christ. I'd like to close with a song that I wrote several years ago about the Lord and kind of about how in our hearts we can be sometimes following him, sometimes not, and yet he is faithful. He's always the same, and he still loves us.